In 2012, I set off on my first thru hike, or thru hike attempt. I only made it about 500 miles into the Appalachian Trail. It's honestly embarrassing how little research I had done at the time. Frankly, I didn't even know where the trail started. I didn't even know where the trail ended. I didn't know how long the trail was. The Appalachian Trail starts at Springer Mountain in Georgia. I didn't start at Springer Mountain. I started a couple miles north of there at a parking lot. There was a couple guys sitting in their truck that had some coffee. They asked me if I was a thru hiker. I said yes. They asked me if I was gonna go up and see Springer Mountain. And I turned around and I looked back there towards that other trail heading in the opposite direction. I said no. Why would I ever go back? Why? I'm already here. You know, that's almost like their television. They like to maybe place bets on who they think is gonna go the entire distance. I'm sure not very many of those guys bet on me going too far, and they were correct. Now, I don't look at this entire experience as a failure, though I like to call it that, because I like to think, what if I did go every mile? What if I did go the entire 2,000 mile length of the AT? I may not be in the same position that I am today. You know, I may not have the same love for hiking that I do today. That might have just been a once in a lifetime experience. You know, and that's kind of what I think it would have been. Whereas I failed that trip, and it instilled me with this drive that I needed to go back out there and try again. Now again, I might call this trip a failure, but it was amazing. Every second of it was amazing. It was liberating. It was true freedom. So sometime my mom had asked me, you know, why don't I go on the Appalachian Trail? Now this may seem like a really weird thing for a parent to kind of bring up, but my grandparents lived near the Appalachian Trail, so my family was familiar with the area. They were familiar with the trail, and I think what my mom was going for was that I just needed some space, that I just needed some time to go out there and think about what I truly did want. I'm eternally grateful for that decision to go out there, because I got exactly that. I had time where I could go out and think to myself about what I really wanted. So I set out on the Appalachian Trail without doing just about any research. It was almost like pulling teeth to make me do any research before going after this thing. You know, I want to say my mom just kind of like helped me along the way and pushed me into this, which is really incredible. Looking up gear lists or watching YouTube videos or reading blogs or anything along those lines, it wasn't something that I was going to do. Honestly, I guess I felt like, how hard could it really be? You have a tent, you have a sleeping bag, and you go out and you walk. That was it, right? I was a little bit wrong. So I had this picture in my head of what a hiker looked like. You know, and that was the giant alpine backpacks, like you're gonna go up Everest type of thing. So going into Dick's Sporting Goods, I was already off on a really bad foot, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to look and feel like the typical backpacker, because I felt like if I looked that way, then I would be able to perform like a real backpacker. I bought a 75-liter Kelty backpack. I didn't know what I needed, so I just got everything. Everything in the backpacking section of Dick's Sporting Goods. And I brought it all home. And I started going through all of my stuff and all of my parents' camping stuff and gathering it all together into some giant pile and then stuffing this backpack full of it. Now, this is a 75-liter backpack. It was probably like 3 to 4 feet tall in itself. It was huge, and I stuffed it. This backpack was as full as it was ever going to get. Every single pocket, everything was stuffed. I had not just one guidebook for the Appalachian Trail that I had never even looked at. I had never even opened it. I had not just one. I had 3 different guidebooks for the Appalachian Trail. I had not just maps for Georgia, I had maps for North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia, and I didn't have one yo-yo, I had 4 yo-yos. Just every little thing I had an extra of it. It's hard to think back to all the things I had back then because there was just so much. I had a hardcover book on edible plants. Now this wasn't like an edible plants book on Georgia and North Carolina because things are very regional or state specific. This was an edible plants book on like the entire United States or maybe even the world. And it was thick. It was a big book. I had books to draw in, I had all sorts of pencils and just everything you could possibly imagine, and every mistake any beginner backpacker could ever make, I was making. I was not going to do research. I was overpacking. I had these giant clunky boots. I didn't even start with trekking poles. Like, I don't even know I wound up with trekking poles just because after a couple of days I found out like how beneficial they were going to be and how much they were going to help me walk with this giant burden of a pack on my back. I don't even know where I got them from. But the Appalachian Trail is extremely forgiving. Like I say, you can start out, and a lot of people do, making all these same mistakes, and they still go the entire distance. If they go the entire distance, can you even call these things mistakes? I don't know. You probably can't. There's certainly more comfortable ways of doing it. For me, they were mistakes. Ultimately it was this type of thinking and this type of stuff that made it so I only made it 500 miles. Now, I remember this pack when I finally got it dialed in. I finally fit everything in it because everything I had wasn't even going to fit in it. Multiple pairs of pants, I had shorts, and it wasn't like sleep pants. It was that I was thinking like every other day I would have like 3 different pairs of pants and shirts and socks and all these clothes that I could rotate in and out of because, of course, you got to be wearing clean clothes. So finally, when I dialed this pack in to everything I wanted and stuffed it full of everything I wanted, this backpack weighed upwards of 60 to 70 pounds. Here I was with my 70-pound bag. I remember putting that thing on and thinking like, yes, I am a real hiker now. I've done it, I remember I even brought it over, this giant pack, over to my best friend's house. And I was showing it to him and his brother and our other friends, and like we could barely even pick this thing up. It was amazing. I could barely get it on my back. We could barely pick it up off the ground. And we were all looking at it like, damn, that thing is awesome. My mom drove me up to Dahlonega, Georgia, and she dropped me off. And I was thinking that we weren't going to see each other for the next like 8 to 10 to like 14 months. And I was just thinking like, yep, I'm walking to Canada. I set off, and immediately it was freedom. That first day, I probably only made it like 4 or 5 miles. It was not easy, but I was having the time of my life. I was meeting all these other cool people. It was a really cool thing, and it was really unique and special. And now this first night I camped, I couldn't even make it to like the first shelter. It was maybe a couple hours before sunset, and I was like, I'm never gonna make it. I just gotta stop here and camp. And people were passing by, and it was only a couple more miles. But I convinced a couple other people later in the evening that, it's too far. We're never going to make it there. You guys should just stop and camp here. It's a sort of flat spot. It wasn't. We were all on a hill. I remember that night, like, sliding down into my little tent. This first night was my first ever night using my camp stove. I had never even tried to light it before. I was sitting there. I still had the directions in the little box, and I was reading it, and one of these other hikers was looking at me like, this isn't your first time ever using that, right? Every possible mistake. I had only used most of this gear like once before. I had gone hiking with some friends once prior, and at the time, I knew I was underprepared for this trail, and I didn't even tell them that I was going to go attempt this. So despite this lack of preparation, I was still having the time of my life. I remember a big get-together on St. Patrick's Day where some trail angels came out. And, this is right at the beginning of thru hiker season. There's hundreds of us passing through. And I had heard about that that this event was going to be happening, and that's where everyone was going to be camping that night, and there would be like free food and free beer. And already at that time I was like deprived for society, even though it was like day 2 or day 3. It was really incredible. So the next day I leave, I part ways. I just kind of get out of there, and I'm on my own again. Now at this point I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with my like big backpack, and I'm moving forward and I'm feeling good, and I'm now doing like 10 miles a day, and I'm feeling comfortable, like maybe I could do 12 or, maybe 15. And one day I tried, and I think I kind of broke myself that day. What was really holding me back for this entire trip was the true weight of my pack. 60, 70 pounds is too much. It is far too much. 30 pounds is okay. Lighter than that is definitely better. It's more comfortable, less chance for injury. Now, I pushed myself through this like 15-mile day, and I was hurt. So eventually I wound up getting off the trail. And though I had the greatest time of my life, I was really bummed about it and just kind of like put it off into the back of my mind. So it wasn't for another year or 2 did I kind of start hiking again. This time I just needed some space, and I started doing smaller hikes, just day hikes, overnight trips, just anything to kind of get out of the house. This quickly evolved into once a week I was going out camping, into twice a week. Every single day I had off, I would leave work and I would go camping. This was quickly becoming into an obsession. Now, over this course, I had remembered, why did I think I had failed the Appalachian Trail? It was because lack of research, and ultimately, I had a really, really heavy pack. So, I started doing a lot of research, and I started lightening my pack. Now, this is ultimately the reason why, nowadays, when I'm hiking, camping, through hiking, I carry, next to nothing. It's probably because of that first ever experience, where I was carrying 70 plus pounds. And as I was going out on these trips, I was just like more and more comfortable. More comfortable walking. I had a lighter pack. I was just more comfortable being out there. I was more comfortable carrying less. And it was really turning into this like amazing thing and this great passion. And eventually I started asking myself, well, what do I want to do with this passion? I'm going camping and hiking and backpacking twice a week, every single week. Where do I want to take this? And it was really liberating to know that, maybe now I have the experience. Maybe now I can go faster. Now I know what I'm doing. I've been out on the AT. And at this point, just like months and months and months of just obsessive research and obsessive backpacking. And I felt like I had really learned a lot during this time. And I think we all know where this went. This trip just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just needed to train harder and harder and do more research. And, all that research, all that planning, all that preparation, and that saving, it paid off. I found something that I truly loved, and I pursued it. I took it to the highest limit that I possibly could take it. I did like 5,000 miles in 7 months. I set a speed record on the Florida Trail. I achieved everything I had planned on doing because of this type of preparation. Now, a lot of stuff could have gone wrong. Sure. Look at my PCT hike. Stuff goes wrong. The moral of this is just that I'm more clear now than ever on what I want and how to get there and the steps I need to take to get there. I'm now more clear about what I love, what I want to spend my life doing. If I can give any advice, it's if there's something out there that you love doing, regardless of what it is, pursue it. Push that to its furthest limit. So if there's something you found in this world, in this life that you enjoy, do more of it. Really dedicate your time to it. Through these types of experiences, I've found work that I can now do that involves these types of hikes, and these types of hikes themselves have given me the time and the place to go out and think about what I want and who I am and what I enjoy. And I think that's really important. For me, I never wanted to live like a normal life, you know, and I knew this back in 2012, and maybe that's why I went off on the Appalachian Trail in the first place. I knew there was something else out there for me. You know, a lot of jobs these days are getting like mechanized, and who knows what the future holds. You know, who knows what the rest of your life holds. So, you know, if there's something you really enjoy, then go out and do it. Because who knows, these chances may never come again, and you may never know what you find along the way.